As an owner of several properties, I never thought I would find myself in a situation like the one involving Emily. At 34 years old, I have worked hard over the years to build a small empire of real estate in our hometown. This achievement is a result of my dedication, careful planning, and the sacrifices I made along the way. Coming from a modest background, my parents were both hard-working blue-collar workers who did everything they could to provide a decent life for me and my siblings. They dreamt of owning their own home, but that aspiration always seemed just out of reach for them. Their struggles inspired me to strive for something better, to create a brighter future for myself and my family. During my college years, I met my wife, who shared a similar upbringing. She was raised by a single mother who juggled multiple jobs to support her family. This experience instilled in both of us the importance of financial responsibility and resourcefulness. We made it our mission to overcome our past financial struggles and ensure we could create a stable and secure life for our children. My wife and I worked tirelessly, investing in properties, flipping houses, and saving every penny we could. Each property we acquired represented countless hours of hard work and a collective dream we shared. Now, as the proud father of two amazing kids, a son and a daughter, I view our properties as more than just a source of income. They symbolize our commitment to securing a better future for our children. However, my life took an unexpected turn when I encountered an entitled tenant named Emily. She is a 40-year-old single mother who has been renting one of my properties for a few years now. This 3-bedroom house, which I had purchased years ago before getting married, is located in a prime area near her daughter's high school. When I learned about her situation, I offered her subsidized rent to help her afford the home, knowing I would be taking a financial hit. Over the years, I never raised her rent. She has been a reliable tenant, and we developed a friendly landlord-tenant relationship, often communicating about the occasional repairs needed. 3 months ago, Emily shared the exciting news that her daughter, Lily, had been accepted into a prestigious out-of-state university. This was a fantastic achievement for any high school senior. However, the reality of the situation hit hard when Emily explained that the scholarship Lily received barely covered even 10% of the tuition fees. Knowing the financial challenges associated with higher education, I understood Emily's concerns but was apprehensive about how they would manage the costs. Not long after, Emily requested a meeting with me. Initially, I thought it was about some repairs needed in the house. I agreed to meet, expecting a simple discussion. When we sat down in the living room, Emily began by expressing her gratitude for the affordable rent I had provided her. Then she opened up about her desire for Lily to attend her dream university. Unfortunately, after assessing all the costs, tuition, housing, and additional expenses, Emily realized that it was more than she could handle on her own. I listened sympathetically as she detailed her efforts to seek financial aid, apply for scholarships, and even take on a part-time job in addition to her full-time work. Despite her hard work and determination, it still wasn't enough to cover the costs. I nodded, understanding the burden she was carrying, thinking she might ask to delay her rent or something similar. But then, she made an astonishing request that left me speechless. She asked me to sell the property she was living in. Emily explained that selling the house could provide her with enough funds to cover Lily's college expenses. I was taken aback, struggling to wrap my head around what she was asking. I couldn't believe that she expected me to sell my property to help finance her daughter's education. It was a staggering thought that completely changed the dynamics of our landlord-tenant relationship and forced me to reconsider the entire situation. As she continued to explain her situation, Emily emphasized that the property I owned and had been renting to her could sell for a considerable amount. This money would be a crucial resource to fund her daughter's college education. I was taken aback. "Are you serious?" I responded, feeling a mix of shock and disbelief. "You want me to sell my property to pay for your daughter's college tuition?" Emily's eyes were filled with desperation as she insisted that selling the property was her only hope to secure her daughter's future. She mentioned that she had already had the property appraised and was convinced it could cover her daughter's entire college fees. I couldn't believe what I was hearing and asked her if she had lost her mind. There was absolutely no way I was going to part with my property so she could send her daughter to a prestigious university. I told her how much the house meant to me, explaining that I wasn't going to sell it just like that. Emily persisted, suggesting that I could loan her the money and that her daughter would pay me back once she graduated. While I understood the importance of a college education, I was not going to accept such a bold and unreasonable request. Listening to her plead, it became evident that Emily was determined to find a way to fund her daughter's dreams, even if it meant making an unusual request to someone she barely knew. I calmly explained to her that the property was a significant part of my livelihood, a cornerstone of my financial stability, and that I could not simply part with it. I told her that the responsibility of her daughter's tuition should not fall solely on me. If she couldn't afford to send her daughter to that university, I suggested she reach out to her family for support or consider more affordable educational options. Despite my attempts to make her understand my position, Emily continued to press the matter. She claimed that I was the only one who could help her and argued that selling my property really wasn't a big deal. Realizing that this conversation was going nowhere, I decided to leave the property, firmly asking Emily not to approach me about this matter again. I urged her to recognize how outrageous her request was and encouraged her to find another way to fund her daughter's education. I thought perhaps she would come to her senses in time, but over the next few weeks, Emily didn't give up. As her daughter's college journey drew closer, the situation became increasingly unbearable. Emily persisted in her demands, asking me almost daily to sell my property, and even resorted to stopping her rent payments in protest. What had once been an amicable relationship between us had soured significantly. The tension grew as Emily clung to the belief that my property was the answer to her financial troubles. She believed that my refusal to help was selfish, and that it was putting her daughter's future at risk. For me, this was more than just a personal conflict. I was losing out financially while she refused to pay her rent. I warned her that I would pursue legal action due to our binding agreement, but she ignored my warnings, making it clear that her demands would not stop. The situation escalated further when Emily began involving others in our dispute. She started talking to her friends and neighbors, painting me as a heartless landlord who wouldn't help a single mother striving to provide a better life for her daughter. Emily spread her narrative, claiming that I was wealthy yet refusing to lend her the money. Her story struck a chord with many in our community, earning her sympathy. To amplify her distress, she took to social media, penning a Facebook post that placed the blame for her daughter's inability to attend college directly on me. Soon, rumors began circulating throughout the neighborhood. People felt sorry for her and assumed that I was indeed in a position to help but was willfully refusing to do so. Feeling like an outsider in my own community, I struggled with the rising tensions around me. In response to the turmoil, my wife decided to reach out to Emily, hoping that direct conversation could mend the growing rift. Unfortunately, Emily was not receptive to our attempts at communication. The situation continued to worsen as both sides became entrenched in their positions, with little hope for resolution. Emily, however, was not in a mood for a calm discussion. Instead of having a reasonable conversation, she immediately launched into a tirade. She insisted that, as the landlord, I had the ability to sell the property, which she believed was the only way to secure her daughter's future. My wife tried earnestly to reason with her, but Emily's conviction remained unshaken. She argued that we had the means to fund her daughter's college education and accused us of being selfish for not helping. The conversation quickly spiraled into a repetitive loop, with Emily persistently pushing my wife to persuade me to agree to her demands. Her social media posts had painted me as an unsympathetic and wealthy landlord who was heartlessly refusing to help a young girl achieve her dreams. This portrayal had a noticeable impact on our neighbors and the local community. Some people who had previously been on friendly terms with us began viewing us with skepticism. They thought I really did have the ability to relieve Emily's daughter's financial burdens but was choosing to do nothing out of selfishness. Others in the community, aware of my hard-working upbringing and the reality of my financial situation, shared my perspective. They were just as appalled by Emily's brazen demands. These neighbors reminded me that I needed to protect my property and the hard-earned legacy I had built over the years. As days passed, the community became increasingly divided. Some people felt sympathy for Emily, while I remained resolute in my decision to protect what I had worked so hard to secure. Meanwhile, Emily continued to fuel the flames of public opinion against me. She accused me of lacking empathy and of exploiting my position as a landlord. Her social media posts grew more vocal, sharing heartfelt stories of her daughter's determination and the many sacrifices they had made to prepare for college. What started as a private disagreement escalated into a public controversy. The weight of Emily's allegations began affecting my family. My kids, who had always been proud of their dad, started facing bullying at school. Their classmates parroted the false claims they'd heard online, and it was heartbreaking to watch my children suffer due to this situation. After seeing the distress this was causing my family, I decided it was time to take action. I had hoped that Emily would eventually calm down, but when my children became involved, I knew I had to defend my integrity and set the record straight. I reached out to a lawyer who specialized in property disputes and landlord-tenant conflicts. Together, we drafted a cease and desist letter to put an end to Emily's defamatory actions and to protect my reputation within the community. My lawyer explained that this letter was just the first step in our legal battle. If Emily didn't back down, we would be prepared to take the fight all the way to court. When Emily received the cease and desist letter, she was understandably taken aback. She attempted to reach me by phone, but I chose not to answer. Instead, she sent a text message expressing her desire to talk and clear things up before it escalated further. She claimed this was all a huge misunderstanding and that we could talk it out. I responded by stating my intention to take her to court. I warned her to brace herself because she was going to regret trying to mess with me. I knew this would be an uphill battle. Emily had been relentless in her claims that I should pay for her daughter's tuition and was actively ruining our family reputation, both in the community and online. My lawyer was preparing for our case, outlining all the false accusations and the harm Emily had caused us in recent months. When some of my relatives found out I was taking her to court, they suggested I should give her a chance to resolve the issue. They reminded me that she was a single mother trying to do her best. However, I felt it was essential to stand my ground and protect what I had worked so hard for. She is a single mother who is doing her best to support her child. Recently, there's been a lot of drama involving her landlord, who goes by the name of Reddit. This landlord refused to sell their property to help this mother pay her daughter's college fees. Instead of compromising, the landlord decided to drag her into court. In an update, Emily, the single mother, had responded to the legal action with a letter filled with threats and accusations against the landlord. She claimed that the landlord was charging unfairly high rent despite knowing she was struggling financially. This, according to Emily, made it impossible for her to save any money for her daughter's education. It's hard to believe how far Emily is willing to go to get what she wants. Her accusations don't hold water, and it's frustrating to see her behave like the victim when she has actually received subsidized rent from the landlord. It's apparent that Emily is trying to twist the situation to benefit herself, but the landlord isn't going to let that happen. Emily shows no signs of backing down. She intends to fight this out. The landlord's lawyer, Matthew, reassured her that their case is strong because Emily's claims lack validity. However, he advised her to brace for a long and exhausting legal journey. The landlord couldn't help but reflect on how rapidly this situation had escalated. Initially, they never planned to end up in court, especially not against someone who had been a tenant. Still, it's essential to stand firm and defend what is rightfully theirs. Emily may have her reasons for her actions, but the landlord refuses to be pressured into selling their property. They have their family's future to think about and are resolved to see this through, regardless of the challenges ahead. The landlord plans to provide updates as the legal proceedings unfold. In a second update, the legal proceedings commenced officially. The tension leading up to the court date felt unbearable. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation as both sides laid out their arguments and evidence. Emily, accompanied by her attorney, painted herself as a struggling single mother fighting for her daughter's future. Her lawyer emphasized the financial struggles she faced, claiming that the landlord's property was her last hope for her daughter's chance to attend a prestigious out-of-state university. Emily's testimony was emotional, with tears welling in her eyes as she spoke about the sacrifices she had made for her child. She described the long hours she worked and her commitment to ensuring her daughter succeeds. Emily talked about her tireless job searches and her many attempts to apply for scholarships and financial aid, portraying herself as a mother who had done everything possible. Throughout the proceedings, Emily's attorney painted the landlord as a heartless landlord only interested in making money and ignoring a young girl's dreams. They made it sound like the landlord knew about Emily's struggles but continued to take advantage of her situation by charging high rent. The most surprising moment came when Emily introduced a witness, a family friend, who claimed to have overheard a conversation between Emily and the landlord in which the landlord allegedly promised to sell the property to pay for the daughter's college education. The landlord sat in shock, unable to believe this outright lie being told in court. Matthew, the landlord's attorney, quickly sprang into action to challenge this claim. He argued passionately that no such conversation had taken place. He took a careful and detailed approach to disprove the witness's account. First, he cross-examined the family friend, asking a series of specific questions to test the witness's memory and credibility. Matthew asked about the date, time, and location of the supposed conversation, looking to uncover any inconsistencies or lapses in the witness's recollection. In response, the family friend struggled to provide clear details and could not offer any solid proof, like text messages or emails, to back up their claim. The landlord's side was determined to expose the truth and stand strong against these false accusations. The tension continued to rise as the courtroom hearings unfolded, and it became clear that the fight was far from over. Evidence such as text messages and emails were crucial in supporting the argument against Emily's claims. During the cross-examination, her testimony started to become less convincing when closely examined. Matthew, who was defending me, presented clear evidence that challenged Emily's story. He introduced text messages and emails exchanged between Emily and me that were from the time when she said the promise to sell the property was made. These messages indicated that we had never even talked about selling the property to pay for her daughter's education. In fact, it was Emily who was pressuring me to sell my property in order to loan her money. Additionally, we had a neighbor who lived next to Emily's property come forward to testify that Emily was actually paying less rent compared to other renters in the area. To back this up, my lawyer showed receipts from other tenants that confirmed this fact. Matthew argued that the lack of any written or electronic communication about the supposed promise that Emily claimed was made, combined with the neighbor's testimony, raised serious doubts about the credibility of Emily's family friend who supported her account. This friend's testimony could not be considered solid evidence. Moving forward, we focused on proving that Emily had deliberately attempted to damage my reputation on social media, which ultimately led to bullying directed at my children. My attorney presented a thorough collection of Emily's social media posts and messages where she accused me of being a cruel landlord who refused to assist her daughter in achieving her educational goals. These posts were filled with emotional statements and outright lies, all crafted to generate sympathy and support from the community. We showed how these posts were strategically designed to create a story that depicted her as a struggling mother desperately trying to ensure her daughter's future, while in reality, she was emotionally manipulating me into selling my property. Matthew then introduced screenshots of comments and direct messages from people who had reacted to Emily's posts. Some of these individuals were members of the local community who had formed negative views of me based on the false information Emily had shared. Their comments ranged from sympathy for her situation to accusations that I was an insensitive landlord taking advantage of her. Alongside this social media evidence, we brought in witness testimonies from my children, who had experienced bullying at school because of Emily's posts. They shared how their classmates echoed the lies they had read online about their father, which led to name-calling and harassment. My lawyer argued that there was a clear connection between Emily's false claims on social media and the bullying my children faced at school. The misleading narrative she created not only harmed my reputation but also had a direct negative impact on the well-being of my family. This presentation of evidence effectively illustrated how Emily's actions online resulted in real-life consequences for my children. As the legal proceedings continued, I felt confident that justice would prevail. The evidence presented thus far illuminated the truth and disproved the false claims made against me. I believed that the court would see through the manipulation and arrive at a fair decision in this case. In an update on our progress, we had a victory in the courtroom last month. The experience of navigating these legal proceedings had been incredibly challenging, filled with ups and downs that felt like a roller coaster ride. My lawyer continued to present compelling evidence and testimonies that made it increasingly apparent that Emily's claims were unfounded. Her attempt to manipulate the situation by introducing a family friend who falsely testified about a promise that I never made crumbled under careful examination. The inconsistencies in their accounts, along with the lack of solid evidence, cast serious doubt on the validity of their claims. The witness's testimony cast serious doubt on the validity of Emily's claims against me. After a careful and thorough examination of all the evidence, including various testimonies, the judge finally announced the verdict. To my immense relief, the ruling was in my favor. I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me as I realized that the judge had seen through all the baseless claims made by Emily. The verdict declared Emily guilty of defamation, and she was ordered to pay damages for the harm she had inflicted on my reputation. This included covering the rent for the previous months along with additional fines. Moreover, the judge issued a restraining order which prevented Emily from making any more defamatory statements about me or my family. This ruling not only validated my actions but also reinforced my right to protect my property. As the legal battle came to an end, I looked across the courtroom and saw Emily sitting beside her lawyer, her posture slumped in defeat. I then glanced at her daughter, Lily, and felt a pang of sadness. It struck me that Lily's dreams may have suffered due to her mother's sense of entitlement. With the nightmare finally behind us and justice served, I recognized that this experience served as an important lesson for everyone involved. It emphasized the significance of defending oneself and maintaining a strong conviction in the face of audacious demands from others. I felt a renewed sense of self-assurance, knowing that my home and our livelihood were secure once again. I took a moment to express my gratitude to everyone who had supported me throughout this challenging journey. The mental pressure and struggles that my family and I had endured were immense, but in the end, the truth prevailed. It has now been 6 months since my last update following the courtroom victory. The restraining order has effectively silenced Emily, and the damages she was ordered to pay have provided some level of consolation for the harm done to my reputation. Emily and her daughter had to move out after I issued them an eviction notice. While their circumstances were difficult, I understood that I was no longer responsible for their situation. I did feel a little sympathy for Lily and the lost educational opportunities she faced, but the reality remained that Emily's audacious requests had put their family in a challenging position. Additionally, Emily was forced to take down her defamatory posts on social media as part of the court's ruling, which led many people to learn the extent of the lies she had spread. The last I heard from them was when Lily unexpectedly reached out to me with an apology. I had watched Lily grow up and had always seen her as a great kid, but after her mother started making those false allegations, I had to cut off contact. So, it was quite surprising when she wanted to reconnect following her mother's public loss in court. In her message, Lily expressed genuine remorse for her mother's behavior and the consequences that followed for their family. She thanked me for my patience and understanding throughout the ordeal, acknowledging that her mother's actions had negatively affected both our families. Lily shared that they had moved to a more affordable area and that she was now attending a local college to pursue her education. She also mentioned that she had talked to her mother after the legal proceedings ended and urged her to back off, stating her determination to shape her own future without her mother's outrageous demands. Hearing this made me feel sympathy for what Lily had endured at such a young age due to her mother's false claims. I told her that everyone deserves a second chance and commended her for taking control of her own destiny. I wished her the best of luck with her studies and assured her that the past was behind us. With Emily and her daughter no longer living on my property, my life has settled into a new normal. The weight of the false accusations and the bullying our children faced earlier has finally lifted. We took action by reaching out to our children's school to address the bullying they had experienced.